nice to speak to you.
You
Thanks
too,
for
you
coming
too.
today.
Thank you. Thanks for inviting me.
Yeah, so I'm really excited because today we're going to talk all about how to break free from self-doubt. And yeah, Alex, I've been following him for a while now, and yeah, I find him very inspiring. Yeah, because he really helps people to stop overthinking and break free from the self-doubt, which is something that a lot of us struggle with. So I think this life will be really valuable for a lot of people. And the good news is that you can overcome it and that you can learn to live with it. I mean, there's lots of tools to help you. I think we always have that voice inside our head that says something, but once you've been working on yourself, then you can sort of tame the voices inside your head.
Mm.
So I actually was curious, to know because you work with so many successful people, and you think they have it all, but anyway, they still feel unsatisfied, unhappy, despite all these achievements that they have. Like, why do you think this happens?
Yeah. So I would say it's generally down to two, it can be down to two different things. But the first one, and I see this happening a lot, and it was certainly the case for myself, is that, well, we tend to learn to live our lives for other people's expectations. So whether that's our parents' expectations, whether that's our teachers or our bosses or society's expectations. And we do that because that's essentially as children how we learned to feel loved, safe, and emotionally connected. And so what happens is that we then get into the habit of living for other people's approval. And so then you'll live your entire life or your entire career doing things that aren't really for you, that are actually for someone else or for other people or for people's expectations. Sometimes you don't even know who that is, but it just feels like, I need to do this. I need to get a job. I need to like get promoted. I need to do this. And so I think one of the reasons why so many people feel so unfulfilled is because actually they're they're not living life true to themselves, and they're actually living someone else's dream. They're living someone else's life. And so I would say that's one of the reasons that I see it as very common, is that um, people they're just not living their own lives. They're not living life true to themselves. They're living for for other people's expectations. And actually, like there's a book, I forgot who the author was, but it was a woman who interviewed hundreds of people on their deathbed, and she identified the biggest regret of the dying, which is I wish I'd had the courage to live life true to myself, not the life others expected of me. And so this is like a very, very common problem. And so that would be the first reason. And then the second reason is, I think that a lot of high achievers, again, myself included, will have a tendency, and it's probably again linked to childhood, and it's a protection mechanism, but will have a tendency to have a very strong inner critic and to be very hard on themselves. So never truly being satisfied with where they are. So I'm sure many of people will relate to this. Kind of whenever you reach a goal, you move the goalposts, and so you're never really satisfied. It's like you're constantly chasing this horizon that you never can reach, and a lot of high achievers will attribute many of their successes and where they are in life to that inner critic, to the fact that they've been hard on themselves. And so then it's very hard to let go of this inner critic. It's very hard to let go of this voice, or this tendency to have very high expectations of yourself. But the problem with doing things in that way is that it doesn't matter what you achieve, you never end up being satisfied. And what I discovered, and what I help a lot of my clients discover, is that there is actually another way. There is another way to be successful that doesn't require you beating yourself up and being so hard on yourself. And actually, if you think of who's more likely to seek out failure, someone who will get told off and berated every time they fail, or someone who knows that whenever they fail, someone will be there and they'll support them and they'll say, it's okay, you got this, keep going. Right. And
Mm.
so I don't know what other people think, but for me, for sure, like I'm like way more likely to seek failure if I know that it's safe. And we forget about creating that safety within us, and actually finding out that if you are a high achiever or an overachiever, it's not because you stop beating yourself up that you're not going to keep progressing, that you're going to suddenly not become complacent. And it's actually quite the opposite. And I have one of my clients, I won't mention his name, but he again used to be super hard on yourself, typical high achiever, was doing great in his business and his life, but just never able to be satisfied, never able to truly enjoy it. And by actually changing the way he spoke to himself, he completely changed his approach to life. And the funny thing is that his business is doing even better, and he's actually even more ambitious than he was before. And for me, it's quite simple. Is because if you remove that harsh inner critic, well, actually it frees you up to just go after even bigger, bolder goals, because the fear of failing is a lot smaller.
Yeah, so I think that inner critic, that first thought, you can't really control it, kind of thing, because a lot of things just automatic. But you can control the second thought, and that's that other voice that should be more overpowering and be like, no, we're not going to go that way, I'm going to give the name Sally. We're not going there today. If you've said it so many times to me, I'm not going to listen, because I've got bigger plans, other goals. I'm going in a different direction now. But I think it's a keep on training, like a puppy, really. Like keep on training, and eventually it's just going to get like easier as you grow, and as to prove to yourself, that you're able to do something. See.
Yeah, like absolutely. I think you touch on something quite important there, and that is this creating distance between you and your thoughts, and like realizing that you are not your thoughts. You're just the one observing them. And so when you can distance yourself and just even recognizing, like one of the best exercises that I do with my clients is to get them to identify that inner critic, like be very specific. Like, what does it look like? Is it an old teacher? Is it an old grumpy? Can be an old lady or a parent or whatever, and just be very, very specific, and can even name it. I don't know. Grumpy. I don't know. I can't come up with names on the top of my head. But so exactly, something funny and something that you can really easily identify, and then you're like, oh, there you go. There's a silly Sally or grumpy Gran again, or whatever you call it. And by creating distance, you reduce the power that it has over you, because it's suddenly it allows you to detach from it, and then you just see it as just another voice, and you don't have to listen to it.
Yeah, so what I'm seeing, two things now, what you're saying. So one is so creating the distance from that voice and knowing you are not your thoughts, and creating, speaking to yourself like a best friend or like a child. And then the other thing is to stop people pleasing and worrying about what other people think, and stop living for the outside world. Because a lot of us, we do that to be liked, accepted, and fit in. I think that also stems from the olden days, prehistoric times, where we were in tribes, and if we didn't belong to the group, we would die and be left alone. So we have to be nice and please everyone, or belong, make our parents proud.
Yeah, exactly. I think, people pleasing definitely comes into it, but I think it can be even deeper, where it's just not even realizing that we're pleasing people. Like it's just living like on automatic. Like I don't like this analogy necessarily, because it's taken proportions of its own on the internet, but like living in the Matrix, right? You're just going on autopilot. You're not really thinking about why you're doing it. It's just like, okay, this is what I'm supposed to do. Like I'm meant to go to university. I'm meant to get a job. Then I'm meant to get married and buy a house. And you follow these steps without ever questioning why. And when you actually take the time to question why, you realize that actually, maybe this isn't what you actually want to do. And I think so many people wake up like late in their career, when they realize, this is not what I wanted to do. Like, I didn't want to be a lawyer. I didn't want to be a doctor or whatever. And I mean, I'm just mentioning classic examples, but because they spend their whole life not doing what they actually wanted, but doing what they thought other people wanted them to do.
And say they figure out, okay, they wake up, shit, I don't want to do this. Like, what would you recommend them, like the first steps to take to figure out what they do want to do?
Yeah. So that's the $1 million question. And if I knew if I knew the exact steps, well, then probably wouldn't have a job. But I think it already getting to that point is a great place to start. And the approach that I like to encourage is to start discovering what it means to be you, right? And so it's just starting with just some simple self-awareness and actually taking the time to reflect and discover what does it mean to be authentic. And because the main issue with living life according to others' expectations is that you're not really being you. So not being true to yourself is not being authentic. But authenticity is not something that you can just switch on or off. It's not like, okay, now I'm going to be authentic. No, your authenticity is actually something that you discover. It's something that you uncover by taking action, by figuring it out as you go along. Like I'm still in the process of truly discovering what it means for me to be authentic. And it's in that discovery process that we discover our purpose, so that we start living with more meaning. And so what I would encourage, or if anyone listening who's at that stage, is to just start exploring, what does it mean to be you? And, a few exercises you can do. Actually, I have two powerful questions. One would be, so ask yourself, if you could design in the future, somewhere in the future, your perfect ideal average day. And you just go through, like, what would be your ideal average day? So what would you do when you get up? First thing when you get up, what would you have for breakfast? Who would you spend your time with? Who would you have lunch with? How would you structure your day? And go deep into what that would look like, because that will give you so much information. And the key, one of the key prompts is that there is no limit. And imagine you had limitless amount of wealth, limitless. There were no limits to this goal, to this average day. And so just doing that will give you an indication, okay, what's important to me. So that as an exercise is pretty good as well. Another question which I really enjoy is, if you had nothing to prove and nothing to hide, how differently would you live your life right now? And
that's a big one.
And it's a tough one. It can be quite confronting, but again, it will give you so much indication as to, or so many indications as to what is truly important to you. But yeah, so going back to answer your initial question, that basically just get on or start your journey of discovering what it means to be authentic, and then start taking action and start really being authentic and uncovering what that means for you, and everything else will naturally fall into place.
No, 100%. And I also think that sometimes it can be a stepping stone, like a thing in the middle, and that then you will finally reach out what you really want to do. So for example, with me, I knew I wanted to get out of the corporate world because it was nothing for me. And then I thought that I want to become a beautician because I spoke to someone and she did it, and I was like, oh, this is amazing. And then I did the course, and then I did an internship. And then during the internship, I was like, I still had my full-time job on the side. I did this on the side. But I was like, you know what? I'm really missing the psychology. Like, I want to know more about people, want to help people. Like, and I was just like, making them look pretty, but that didn't do it for me. But I really feel sometimes if I never did that, then I wouldn't have thought about, no, I want to go deeper. I want to do the psychology, all that stuff. So sometimes it's also okay to try something. I mean, at least you're trying something, and be like, actually, this is not it. And then, you'll, from there, it will be a stepping stone to something else. But as long as you're moving and taking action.
Yeah, absolutely. It really is all about momentum. And, it's often in action that we discover things that we would never discover by trying to figure them out. And so that's always what I tell people, or myself, who feel stuck, is just get in action, get in momentum. And because in life, it's often not like binary decisions and binary choices. It's actually you meet someone who then tells you about this other opportunity, and then you speak to that person, and then so you start here and you end up there, but you would never have ended up there by just thinking about it, right? And so that's where momentum and action is so important. I can't remember why I had this analogy, but it's like when you're moving on a boat, like it's much easier to turn when you're in action, when you're going fast. Whereas if you're staying stuck, you can't really turn a boat. And so it's the same with us in life. You know, if we want to move forward, then we just have to just get going, and then eventually you'll be able to turn and navigate.
Yes, that's a good one. And then what are the main mental blocks that you think that are, I mean, we spoke a bit about, but are there many more? Like, are the fears or things that are really holding your clients back? Like inaction, procrastination,
Yeah. Yeah, actually, like I would say I was reflecting on this the other day, and there's actually a common theme that kind of links all of these together. And so I think one of the biggest mental blocks that my clients have is this need for certainty. So this need for knowing exactly what's going to unfold. And how that often shows up is as a form of control, right? So it's control and certainty. And that shows up in perfectionism, that shows up in overthinking, in ruminating, even procrastination, you know, is a form of control, because you ensure that a certain fear doesn't show up because you don't do anything. Like if you don't do anything, you know nothing's going to happen, right? So then you're not going to have to face any fears. So it's easier to just do nothing. And so this need for control, it often stems from a lack of trust in our ability to handle the uncomfortable emotions that might arise if things don't go as planned. And so we grow up with maybe an illusion of control that, oh, if we act a certain way, then we'll get a certain result. And so you start trying to predict things and trying to, you know, like hold all the, I'm sure there's an expression for this, I forgot what it is, but kind of control everything at once, so that you don't end up in a situation where you can be sad, where you can be hurt, where you can, you know, experience stress, all these things, because these are emotions that are so uncomfortable. And so we spend a lot of our lives trying to avoid them, and that often comes in the form of control. But we live in a world where it's impossible to know what's going to happen next. Like it's not possible for us to have that certainty, and that certainty is an illusion, or that even that control, the belief, the thought that we have that we can control everything is an illusion, and eventually it actually paralyzes us, because when we can't control everything, it's like the whole, you know, world collapses beneath us. And so actually the key here is not to try to control or have certainty. It's actually to discover ways to trust yourself to handle whatever comes your way. And so I think this brings up the topic of emotional resilience, which, you know, I think is so important, especially in the work that I do with my clients, is making or showing, or however you want to say, but like showing people how to process their emotions, how to actually be more comfortable with the full spectrum of emotions, because emotions are inevitable. Like, I don't want to be morbid, but like every single person that you love is going to die. And so that means that you are going to face grief, you are going to face pain, you are going to face sadness. Like it's just an inevitable part of life. And the more we try to resist those feelings, the more we try to avoid these uncomfortable emotions, well, the more we end up in situations where we feel paralyzed, where we feel crippled by fear. And also, you know, this will show up in other areas of our life, or we'll lash out or whatever. And so the one of the keys to letting go of this need for control and reducing your overthinking, your ruminating, is actually just to be way more comfortable with your emotions and start cultivating this trust in yourself that you can handle whatever life throws at you. And you know, everyone's experienced this where, or maybe not everyone, but a lot of my clients have, is as soon as you feel the emotion, well, then you know, eventually it goes away, right? And there's this amazing quote by Mark Manson who says that the um, I forgot what it is, but it's the desire for a more positive experience is itself a negative experience, whereas the acceptance of a negative experience is itself a positive experience. And so we forget that sometimes by trying to like seek the positive and control our circumstances so that we avoid feeling sad or feeling these uncomfortable feelings, whereas actually that has the opposite effect. And if we just allowed ourselves to feel the full spectrum of emotions, well, then, you know, we would live actually a way more peaceful life. And so that's really a lot of the work that I help my clients with, is like showing them how to be more comfortable with that full range of emotions so that they can, you know, be the ocean, not the wave. So instead of being the individual wave that goes ups and down, where it's just zooming out and realizing, no, you're just part of this wider ocean. And actually, with every up, there's down, with every high, there's a low, every storm will pass, and just being okay and being able to hold that.
Be the surfer on the wave.
Yes,
right?
exactly. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. So what somebody also told me once is like, what's the worst that can happen? And she was like, the worst that can happen is an emotion. And if you're able to really just accept all emotions and feel them all, and, you know, give them a name, for example, also when an emotion comes up like pain or depression, like you can call it Richard and it's fire and you feel it here. And when you process all that, you become actually so powerful, because then you like know, like I know that I can handle this emotion, and I know that it's going away, because I think a lot of us fear also that this emotion is going to stay forever, and it's not. So also very personal example, like a couple of years ago, I really felt depressed, and I was also so scared. Like I'd wake up, feel that feeling, and I go to bed, feel that weird feeling, and I was like, oh my Lord, am I gonna have this for the rest of my life? Like what? But I always had this thing, like, you know what, I'll get through this. I'm gonna like get myself through this. And you know, like eventually also did a lot of work on myself. It just went away. And it's like, oh, now it's just such an amazing feeling to know. Now also I feel like, because I've dealt with that was like the worst emotion ever. If I have irritation or sadness or anger or disappointment, I'm like, all those emotions are much less than that depression emotion. So now in hindsight, it's sort of like a blessing in a way that I felt that, even though at that time it was horrible.
Yeah. Yeah, I love that, because you're right. Like most people are afraid to feel sadness because they think they will stay sad forever. And people are afraid to feel anger because they're afraid they will hurt the people around them. And so, whereas actually it's the opposite is true. Like when you truly allow yourself to feel your emotions, maybe with anger you can feel them in safe ways, but you're way less likely to then lash out like unjustifiably at someone or snap, because you'll have fully expressed that emotion, so it won't be pent up. And the same with sadness. Actually, when you truly allow yourself to process the sadness, to, you know, if it's grief, like to actually genuinely feel that grief, well, then it just moves through you a lot quicker, and then you go back to your baseline. So
Yeah, no, 100%. And have you
awesome.
ever helped clients like build, I don't know, courage really to face their fears and doubts when making a career change?
Yeah, so I
And how
mean,
can they, how can they build up that confidence?
yeah. Well, I think it takes time. I mean, there's loads of different strategies. The I think that the key one, and it comes back to what we were talking earlier, is that fear isn't necessarily something you need to overcome. It's possible to do things scared, and that's actually the definition of bravery and courage. And so, you know, instead, when you face an uncomfortable or scary situation, you know, don't focus on the fear. Instead, focus on the fact that you're being brave, right? And so that's a subtle shift that you can make, and just be like, okay, I'm just going to be brave in this moment. I'm not focusing on I'm afraid. And there's this little exercise that I've done with some of my clients is where, and I did this myself, where I collect this a courage jar. So whenever I do something brave, I put it in my courage jar. It can be an imaginary courage jar, it can be a Google Doc, it can be a physical, like I've had clients put their little piece of paper in a jar. And then whenever you face something uncomfortable, whenever you come face to face with a fear, you can just go back to the jar and just be reminded of all the times you were brave, and that will give you so much confidence and so much so much courage. So that's one thing. And then just collecting new evidence that you can do this. Like, this takes time. Like, start small and just build up that confidence gradually. So that's that's what I would give, or the advice I would give someone in that situation.
Yeah. What actually helped me a lot is doing CrossFit. I think it's so good for your mind, for your mindset, because every time you have to do something and you get stronger and you can put more weight on the bar and things, and then you're like, what? I never thought I could do this. And you just gain so much confidence from that every time you're getting a little bit better. Yeah, I think just exercising in general is just also good for your
Yeah. And just progress and having goals and just, having a goal and working towards it. Like, it's one of the best things for confidence. But you've been asking a lot of questions. I also want to ask you some questions if you don't mind.
Okay.
But like, I've seen, you talk about creativity as a source of energy, like when you're maybe recovering from burnout, or even, as an expression of yourself, like if you're looking for fulfillment. And so I'm just curious if you could talk a bit more about the role of creativity and how creativity plays an important role in bringing people more into their ideal life.
Well, I think also for a lot of my clients, they've been working in quite high pressure jobs where things were very structured and things always had to go a certain way, that they were like, if they had some creativity, like, oh, that's the only thing that they could hang on for some self-expression and some release of some of what they want to do. And in other situations, they just really miss that, just to be creative, just to think of something new and express themselves. And I also noticed myself with starting a business, like how amazing it is, because you really are in flow then when you're just creating different new things. And with your own business, I mean, you can go sort of ways. And I think that really leads to a lot of fulfillment.
Yeah, I love that. And what are your favorite ways of being creative?
So I used to be very much on Canva in the beginning, being very creative, and like, I'm wasting my time. But I also love doing like these type of lives or creating content, writing blogs. Yes, I think especially I love interviewing people, like doing my podcasts, just thinking of new ideas for my business. I really would love to organize events. I mean, I used to be an event manager also. Really from doing something from scratch.
Yeah, I love that. And like, another thing I've seen you talk about, so the way I got into build or creating my business, it was kind of reckless in the way that I was like, I just quit everything and started like a business. I went all into the business without having necessarily thought out a plan or like tapering off my old job. I just threw myself into the deep end. But is there another way of doing that in a way that might feel less scary, or are there any mindset shifts that you help your clients with so that they can take this big leap but without it feeling reckless?
Yeah, so my clients are a little bit more careful. So, some of them will have money saved up. Some of them have a very kind husband who can support them for a while. Some of them start to just do another job. Can be something like a lower position or something completely different, but just to be able to pay the bill so that they can work on their passion project or something that they really want to do. I also have a lot of clients who end up studying something else. And if they haven't had something saved up, they need to earn some money. So they will do just a side hustle, just a normal job, just to gain, to have some money. Also, be really sure like what you really want to do. And that's like through networking, through asking other people about the job that you want to do. What do they like about it? What don't they like about it? Can you maybe go a few days to work there? Can you maybe do an internship? So that when you make the leap, you're more confident, like, this is what I really want to do, because you've done your research, you've spoken to so many people, you've maybe done an internship, so look, this is really what I want to do. And I also always ask them, what's the cost of staying where you are? Because a lot of them are really, either feeling really down or depressed or had a burnout in the past. They're just not in a good space. So they're like, okay, well, this is actually costing my mental health. And, also always ask them, how do you want to see? How do you want to look back on your life? Do you want to have any regrets? Or do you want to have said, I tried and I experienced life really by doing things. And I also say sometimes it comes with risk sometimes, or you can calculate the risk, but, sometimes you just have to get out of your comfort zone. But I've also heard I think, I can either go like more the safe side like that, more really figuring out, speaking to a lot of people about it. But I've also heard so many success stories of people, it sounds a bit like you, that they just really threw themselves in and they said, listen, failure is not an option, because if I fail, I cannot put food on the table. I cannot pay my rent. So that can also be quite a motivation to really make it work. Because you also sometimes see people when they're comfortable, or like I said, their husband will pay, that they sometimes take it a bit easier and it takes a bit longer to work out the thing. Whereas some people who are a bit more like money needs to come in, that it goes quicker. But I wouldn't say that there's just one size fits all, because everybody is different, and some people are more comfortable with bigger risks than other people.
Yeah, so I guess it's about finding out what the strategy that works for you, and maybe your level of risk.
Yeah, exactly.
Awesome. Yeah. And you mentioned like burnout, and so it's something I know we both have experienced. And for anyone listening, how can you know that you're close to burnout?
Yeah,
Or
and
maybe burnout.
it's difficult because, I mean, everybody has like different symptoms, and sometimes people don't even realize that they have it until they really hit rock bottom. But a lot of times it is with like tired, fatigue, drained at the end of the day. And what I also hear a lot of people say, that really like they can't concentrate anymore. Like when they stare at the screen, it's just like they actually just they can't. Like, and that's for a lot of people like a real wake-up call, because it's actually quite scary when
Yeah,
yeah.
that's how I experienced it. I remember looking at my screen and just couldn't, like, I couldn't make out what was there, and I was like, okay, something's wrong here.
Yeah. And then people have physical, symptoms also, pains, headaches. I had shingles here on the side. Yeah, feeling also very detached, not motivated, maybe before you were really into work, and now not anymore. And yeah, but I think the main thing is really that extreme tiredness, and really just not being able to focus or concentrate.
Yeah. And so what would you say to someone who maybe feels this way?
That I think really your mental health should really be your number one priority. And, we have this one life. We are all going to die one day. So make sure you enjoy your life. But if you don't enjoy your life, make a change. Like, you can make a change now. It's all got to do with mindset, limiting beliefs, thinking that you cannot be successful, thinking that you cannot change your career. If you get over these obstacles, you will find a way. When there's a will, when you really know what you want, and when there's a why, and you know that you deserve, it's also got to do, I think, with self-love, that you deserve better. You deserve to have a fulfilling life and a fulfilling job. And that you just kind of then wake up and be like, I'm going to make a change. Because you don't want to, hit rock bottom. A lot of people, they're like almost on the edge. And when you really hit rock bottom, then it takes such a long time to recover.
Yeah. Yeah. So kind of identify it as quickly as possible and then just do something about it and
Yeah,
take
take action.
ownership, take action.
Yeah, because a lot of people, that what they also do, they go home for a while to recover, and then they go back to the same job, and then the same thing happens. I've spoken to people who had multiple burnouts.
Yeah. How many did you have? Like
I had one.
one again, I know because like I've seen people with who have multiple burnouts, and I was curious because I had a mini second one when I started my coaching career, but I was like I'm curious like for what happens when it happens again, and like how we probably beat ourselves up even more and can be even harder on ourselves.
So a lot of
you
times it's
yeah.
because of the perfectionism, and it's
Mm.
because of how you speak to yourself. If you like, because we can also sometimes just be ambitious, but what's really the difference between just being ambitious or really being that perfectionist? And that's really like criticizing yourself that it's not good enough, that you need to do better, that you need to do more. And it's that negative voice inside your head that's actually ends up also burning you out.
Yeah,
It's
I
all
can
about
relate to
coming
that.
back to self-respect, self-love, and speaking kinder to ourselves. It's crazy actually
Awesome.
how difficult it is for most people, huh? Because that's just how we are sort of programmed, unfortunately.
Yeah. Yeah, I know, and there's a fear, well, at least I have a fear of what would happen if you don't beat yourself up. Like, would you then become complacent? But yeah,
Yeah.
I mean, from experience and what I see with my clients is that it's very often the opposite, because actually being complacent and procrastinating, that's actually a form of not being kind to yourself. Whereas when you're truly kind to yourself, well, then you're out there, you're taking action, you're taking risks, you're less afraid of failure because you're there, you support yourself, and so it creates this more supportive and fun environment to go out there and try things.
But I think some people are not really aware even of what they say to themselves. So what I also do with my clients, that I ask them to be a bit more aware of what do they say on a daily basis to themselves, and then to create new affirmations, or do the work of Byron Katie, which I also absolutely love, that you turn it around, what you're telling yourself. And it's just amazing how much can change just by changing your thoughts. And actually, another question for you. Do you see a difference between clients who've had a supportive system around them and clients who have not had it, like, or supportive community, to be able to live more fulfilled and find, meaning in their career and life?
Yeah, well, I mean, I'm sure you've heard of the expression, you are the sum of the five people you surround yourself with. And like, I agree to that to a certain extent. But I think even more nowadays, you are the sum of the content that you consume as well. But if we stick to the people you surround yourself with, I think like, I'm a firm believer that the quality of your life, well, the quality of the people you surround yourself determines the quality of your life. And so it's very important to surround yourself with people who lift you up and who want the best from you. And I've just noticed also myself, especially, you can separate personal life with maybe your professional life, or even if you have aspirations to create your own thing or your own business. I found that surrounding myself with people who actually have similar goals and similar vision, or who are at a stage that I want to be, has helped me tremendously to grow and to also keep believing in myself when times are tough. And I think I've made a mistake in the past where I've gone maybe to people that aren't necessarily living the life I want to live. And for example, with my dad, who I truly love, but his career is definitely not the career that I want. And maybe in the past I kind of caught myself seek or asking for his advice, but I got advice based on his reality, and so as a result, but it didn't necessarily make me feel good, or it wasn't necessarily what I wanted to hear, where he might have been like, oh, why don't you get a job? If my business was struggling, it's like, oh, you can always get a job. And what I didn't, what I needed to hear was, no, just go for it. Like, just keep believing yourself. Like, it's going to happen. But, you know, and he also wants me to be safe. And, you know, that's his goal as a parent, is to keep his children safe. And so the advice he's going to give is going to be based on that. And so, yeah. And so, but it just shows the importance of the people that are going to influence, you know, the thoughts in your head, and going for or doing something scary, or facing one of your fears, or let's say starting your business, because it's often quite a big thing. You know, you can make a completely different decision based on who you spoke to that day, based on whose voice you're going to listen to. And you know, we've all had these moments in life where we're super enthusiastic, and we think like, oh my God, I can do anything. Of course I can start a business. Of course I'm doing this. But then you go back down to, like, you know, your limited voice. And depending on who you surround yourself with, you know, on that scale of like the most powerful version of yourself to the most fearful, insecure version of yourself, you're going to be somewhere on that scale. And depending on, if you spend more time with people who have similar goals, or who are living the life you want to live, you're going to be exposed to that level of thinking, that quality of thinking, that is actually going to bring you forward, and it's actually going to drag you up to their level. So it's always a difficult one, because like I still have many friends from childhood, and we're at different levels, and different we have different ambitions in life. And so I genuinely enjoy their friendships, but also I just love surrounding myself in communities. I mean, I know you've spent some time in Bali, but when I went there and I joined this men's circle, and it was like, oh my God, this is my people. Like, because I was always the odd one out, you know, being an entrepreneur and start doing my own coaching business. And then I met all these other people, and super successful, and it was just so uplifting, so motivating, and so I think, yeah, for sure, like the people you surround yourself with plays a massive role. It's also why I'm building my own community with my clients. So we're a group of like-minded people who they all want to develop themselves. They all want to even just have deep conversations about personal development, about the origin of fear, like similar to the discussions we're having now. You know, it's not everyone in your immediate network will want to sit down and talk about, you know, the deep rooted self-beliefs, and you know, how the way your teacher treated you at school. Like, you know, not everyone is open to those conversations. And so just, you know, having a group of people who are all on that same page, and all want to learn, and all want to develop, like it's just it's really energizing.
Wow.
And in a world where it's hard to make new friends, hard to connect, well, in these kind of settings, you're very vulnerable, and so you connect very deeply with people. And you know, I actually received a message the other week from someone in my community, and she was saying how she actually like met a really close friend through the community, and now they speak all the time and meet outside. And so, you know, nowadays it can be quite rare when we get to a certain age where you have less opportunities to meet people, because you're either at work or at home. So it's yeah, I think so. Long long answer, but the short answer is yes. I think having a supportive community is super powerful, and more people should seek out groups and communities where they can hang out with like-minded people, or people who have similar goals or ambitions, or even people who are ahead of them and where they want to go in life.
100%. And also make sure that you ask advice from those type of people, or the people who've already achieved what you want to achieve, and not the people who are scared, or who would never do what you want to do, because they
Yeah,
don't do it.
100%.
All right. Thank you so much for your valuable time. And yeah, it was so nice speaking to you again.
Thank you, Chrissy. Same here.
Yeah, learned a lot again, and I'm sure all the listeners as well. So
Awesome.
thanks for being here, and thanks everyone for watching. Have a good
Bye.
day. Bye.